this is my 6th year as a SoundCloud rapper. And I thought it would be fun to make a video about just like documenting all my experiences and my highlights and what I've learned and if I would do anything differently and whatnot. Yeah, so I released my first mixtape on SoundCloud at the very end of 2020. So it's not, I guess this is my 6th year, but I've technically only been an official, I guess I don't even know when you become a SoundCloud rapper. I guess it's when you upload your first mixtape, you technically become. So, yeah, or maybe it's the first paycheck, which is later on. That was maybe a year later, so I don't know, but yeah, so 2020, so it's like more like my 6th year this year, but I've only been 5 years or so. But yeah, my first mixtape, and then I worked on my next album for like 2 years. Let me go through my like timeline basically. I released my first mixtape on SoundCloud in 2020, and then in 2021 I released more mixtapes, and I released my first single on Spotify, which was like a pop song, but whatever, and got everyone at my high school to listen to that. And also I made an EP and made CDs, and it's only on SoundCloud still, but people really liked it, or so they said, and I sold CDs to a bunch of people in my school for like $5, I think, and then I worked on my album, and then 2 years later I released the album on Spotify finally. But a year later I think I released it on SoundCloud first, like a year, like 2022. So I started 2020, 2021 made CDs, 2022 released an album on SoundCloud, 2023 I released the same album but longer on Spotify finally, which is my first album, which is called Reflections, which is on Spotify. But that technically, I'm saying all this because that technically came out in 2022. But 2022 was a very busy year for my career, or career as some people would like to put it, because I still don't make that much money, if any money, off this. So like, I guess it's not really a career, but anyways, it's definitely not a hobby. So 2022, I'd originally planned to move to Melbourne, but that fell through, so I just saved my money. I was working at a butcher shop, and all of them really liked my music. They would play it a lot in the store, and I saved money and went to Melbourne and Sydney to talk to all the record labels in Australia, or all the big ones in Melbourne and Sydney, and Triple J and ABC, and none of them were interested, I guess. I gave them CDs and I showed them. Shout out to, actually, a really cool experience with this was, it was Future Classics, which is, I don't know if it's still Flume's label, but at the time I believe it was Flume's record label. They had an office in Sydney and they had an office in LA. They were really nice. They listened to my music. They got back to me. They wrote me a huge email. I still have the email, and they gave me a bunch of feedback on what to do, and honestly their feedback was great. It was like, keep showing all your music to your loved ones and your friends and get feedback and take the feedback. And I think that's one of the major things overall that I've learned, is that you have to hone in on the little bits of feedback that you get. Obviously staying true to what I want to do, but you gotta listen to when someone says, like, someone reaches out and says like, oh, this song is actually really good. Don't just be like, oh, I have better songs. Like, it's like, what I've learned is find what they think sounds good. What about that did they think sounds good? And what about that song do I like? And merge the two. And that's kind of what I've been doing with each of my albums. And progressively each album gets better reception, so I guess, yeah. Something major that I regret / have learnt that I wouldn't do again is nothing like artistically, but it is who you associate with and who you stand behind and what hills to die on. And basically in 2020, I think it was 2022, I had a show with a lot of artists that I liked their music, and I came to learn things about them that didn't sit with me correctly, so I took them off the show, and I don't regret that. But a year later, I had another show, and so the people that I took off the first show were gaining a lot of traction, and I had a show the year later, and I had another artist booked for that, and I found out some things that about this artist that also didn't sit with me morally, but I didn't want to become the person that just took everyone off the lineup, like just kept cancelling people. And I didn't want it to be another situation like that. And I kept these people on, and I regret that. That's probably the only thing I really regret, is like just not really staying true to my morals, I guess. Yeah, so that's like something that I've learned to stick with, is just always I like need to focus on just staying true to what I believe, and